Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by John Cartwright and Steve Bowling to discuss the rumors that Nintendo won't be holding a June Direct in place of E3. So, let's get started. And yeah, John, you actually covered the update on this one, got us all the details, and what can you tell us about this rumor?
Well, there's not a whole lot to say about the rumour itself, but I can give you the validity of the rumour. So it comes from VentureBeat, with the author being Jeff Grubb, and you may know him as the guy who previously leaked the Mini Direct, which I think was in March last month. So we already know this guy's got precedent for knowing when Directs happen, and it does seem pretty solid. But the general gist is, this isn't going to happen because Nintendo are currently working from home, and there's a lot of struggles with that. It's hard to contact developers to get them to get their games in the Directs, it's hard to work on the games, and it just seems like communication and production isn't going to happen for June. But Jeff did say that we could possibly expect a Direct by the very end of the summer, so maybe in like September time, but yeah, it seems like nothing's happening to replace E3 this year.
Which I get. I mean, we did just do that update for Sakurai where he talked about working from home, and he specifically said, like, this works well for us because it's DLC, but if we were going to work on, you know, Smash Ultimate from scratch, this would be extremely difficult, and these methods would not work. But because they already have it all set up and they're just working on the DLC character, it's a little bit more possible. And you can imagine setting up stuff like, you know, you got to have the person in the studio, you got to have the videos set up, you got to have a camera person, you got to have somebody to edit. And there's all these different pieces that is just so much harder now to get in place.
And speaking of Smash, at the very beginning of the previous Direct, they had the C word in there. They said that some dates are subject to change because of the virus. And later in the Direct, they announced that an ARMS character was going to be revealed for Smash in June. And I've got to wonder, is that still going to happen?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was delayed. There's a lot of stuff that goes into even something as simple as a new character for Smash. We don't know, for instance, if this ARMS character, if they're going to reuse voice samples from ARMS, or if they need someone to come in and record new lines. We don't know. You know, it's hard to say exactly how much work was done by the time of announcement, because I imagine they were already working on this character. I'm giving it a 50-50 shot. I think it could be delayed, but I wouldn't be surprised either way, really.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, compared to other characters in the latest Fighters Pass, I'd imagine the ARMS character is further along. So it's hard to say, because it's not just the contents of the Direct, it's everything in the Direct. Everything that was individually going to be announced is into question now. And they could just put it on Twitter, it could just be a tweet, or it could be a YouTube video, but it's hard to say, because this stuff is made by people, and people are struggling to work right now, especially in big group teams, which games have. It's so hard to communicate and work from home when you're trying to make a game. So it's really this year is unpredictable. I don't know what's going to happen, and I kind of feel bad predicting what's going to happen because it's just we don't know.
As you said, we have no idea what's going to happen for this year. There's so many things up in the air, and we can't expect a lot. You know, if Nintendo does not have this Direct, that's just the way it is. You can't get upset because, you know, I'm sure they would totally do it if they had the ability to. And, you know, Nintendo wants to make money. They want to keep that stuff coming. And I'm sure Sakurai and his Smash DLC is a big priority for them, you know, keeping that moving. So I think there is a decent chance it could happen. I mean, he specifically talked about them continuing work, finding efficient ways to make it happen. So I think we could see the ARMS character. I think it might still reach its, be ready for when it was supposed to, or at least close to it. But they might still decide to delay to it, so there's not as much of a gap between the other DLC.
Sure, yeah.
Because that might take longer. Because Steve talked about voice acting, and yeah, they might use clips from ARMS itself. They've done it before with, like, Sonic, but that doesn't mean, what about Kirby? Kirby has to have that line of whatever he does, unless they make it a more generic thing, and they don't call out their attack. We don't know. But there is those aspects. You got to think about those far-reaching things. And another point is, well, we're going to get ARMS music. Theoretically, a couple of that's going to be remastered and remixed. So what are we going to get from there? Is it going to cut the amount of songs, or are they going to try to keep the amount of songs they had before and just delay it a little bit further so the composers have all the time to get that music together? There are so many little pieces that go into game development, and a lot that I don't even know offhand, that really messes with things. So yeah, no direct kind of makes sense.
I suppose that's kind of the fear as well, is they could try and rush out the Smash DLC and give us kind of a compromised experience just to get the character to us. And, like, I appreciate that, but I'd also rather wait. I'd also rather wait until everything is ready. Like, let it cook. And also I think they're probably going to have to extend the actual Fighters Pass 2 expiry date. So I think they said they're going to finish it by the end of 2021. And there's 6 characters in this thing, so unless they're trying to rush them all, it's kind of tricky to say if they're going to meet that deadline or not.
Yeah, that's a good question. Beyond the direct, this could have larger implications, and I'm certain it does. I mean, we've seen games being delayed due to the virus, from every company, really. And Nintendo is certainly no exception. I think they're just for being a little smarter about it, just not... they don't really announce things until they're close to being ready, so I'm certain there have been some types of internal delays within Nintendo's software development pipeline that we're just not privy to.
Sure.
But the Fighters Pass, I agree. I think that we'll see that they have to extend that date, just because, I mean, they are losing time on this, I'm sure, but it'll be interesting to see, and I guess it is largely dependent on what these characters are and if there's existing materials they can use for these. But I agree with you, John. I'd much rather wait an extended period to get the full quality experience that we're kind of used to from a Smash character.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there too as well, is Nintendo very often wait until like a couple of months out to announce a game that's going to release soon. And a lot of the time, they just announce a game and it's ready. So Nintendo do quite often just sit on full releases. I believe New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe was found in the eShop via a data mine, like months before it was announced. And they did that with Twilight Princess HD on the Wii U. Sometimes they just have games and they're waiting for the right time to release it. So it's not impossible for those games to be sort of rescheduled to coming out sooner rather than later. But I think they could very easily just tweet something and say, hey, 3D World is coming out in July, go buy it. I don't think that's out of the question. But when it comes to brand new releases, like if you're thinking Pikmin 4 or Breath of the Wild 2, they're probably going to be pushed out later. But re-releases, I think they still have a possibility of coming out soon.
Absolutely. If they have things ready in the pipeline, the rumored Super Mario 3D World on Switch, that could be a possibility. There is a long-rumored Metroid Prime trilogy, that could be put out on Switch, unless they want to keep it pretty close to Metroid Prime 4 still. There's a ton of possibilities out there. Maybe things they didn't even think about putting out as soon as they did. As you said, John, we could see a lot sooner. And this Nintendo's brand of development, rather than just, all right, here it's coming, it's almost here, all right, it's out now, rather than just, hey, it's out, and or hey, here's the thing, and hey, it's out in 3 weeks.
Was Clubhouse Games June or July? Because I always found it a bit weird that they announced that so far out, because that feels like a game to me that you announce imminently, but it was announced months in advance, so it kind of makes sense that they announced that game for its June or July release date way back in March now, because when else are they going to announce it, right? So it's kind of foreshadowing this.
I wonder how long Nintendo has had the idea that a June Direct might not work. Because like John said, it does seem weird. Like Clubhouse Games is not the type of game you have a months-long hype cycle for. Yeah. If anything, that strikes me as the kind of game that would almost work better as like, hey, it's available right now. Go impulse buy this. So I am a little surprised that they announced that way back in March, compared to its release date, which I agree kind of implies that maybe, they were beginning to see the writing on the wall that, hey, we might not be in a good position to do a direct in June. But I don't expect Nintendo to acknowledge this whatsoever. I mean, it's kind of weird to announce something not happening.
Yeah, something that we're not going to have this thing that we did not announce.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We're just going to not hear anything from Nintendo at all.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. I think there's a small chance we might hear it in the investors meeting, just because investors will want to know this kind of stuff. But it's also one of those announcements that's just so deflating that what's the point of saying it? Like, just let it ride out. E3's already cancelled. I don't think everyone is 100% expecting this. There's always been some doubt, so yeah, if I were Nintendo, I'll just ride it out and just let June go by.
Just like, hey, this thing's coming. Here's a trailer, and here's a release date. Not worry about a whole direct formula. It just keeps things easier, neater for them, and they can get it worked out on an individual basis rather than a whole big thing. And they can bring the directs back once things are hopefully over.
Yeah, 2020 is gonna be one of those years that we look back on and it'll just be a blip. I mean, to be fair though, the start of the year had some great releases. We had Dreams, we had Resident Evil 3, we had Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's been a bunch of great games, but yeah, they were all at the start of the year, and we're getting towards this dip where nothing's really happening. I mean, The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, they're on the way, but they've also been announced way in advance. We've been anticipating those games for years and years. So when it comes to those brand new reveals and releases, it's going to be a dry year.
I mean, we did get Assassin's Creed Vikings, or Valhalla, I guess it is. So Ubisoft is still chugging along with all their releases. So
nothing can stop Assassin's Creed from being made. It's got to be every year.
Not one bit. But I mean, I think there's going to be that one major release, at least for a bit, because end of May, granted, it's Xenoblade Chronicles. June we have Last of Us. July, Ghost of Tsushima, and so forth. To kind of keep people going. And this one big release thing could mean that each of those releases do extremely well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Animal Crossing is still doing nuts. Final Fantasy VII did incredible. I mean, it's hard to put it in perspective, but those games will do well because of the circumstances. But not every game can have that opportunity, though.
Yeah, I do wonder how smaller games like Streets of Rage 4 or Sakura Wars is going to do in this environment. Like, oh, there's this new game that I've never heard of before, and it looks kind of interesting. Well, I got nothing else to play that's new. Let's try it out.
Sure, yeah. The one concern I have is later into the year, people are really going to start feeling their financial burdens. And I don't know if disposable income is going to be as present as it is later in the year. So we'll see if those later releases start to feel a bit of a dip there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we also have, presumably, unless they get delayed, we have next-gen consoles coming out at the end of the year. So there's going to be a lot of stuff competing for our disposable income towards the holiday season, I think. But yeah, it is interesting to note a lot of people are looking for things to do. We're all very bored of being stuck at home. So gaming is definitely benefiting from that in a big way. We're seeing, to go back to Animal Crossing, we're just seeing like loads of really famous people tweeting about Animal Crossing, which I'm sure Nintendo is super thrilled about. But I think Danny Trejo posted a picture of his island. Elijah Wood from Lord of the Rings freaking visited somebody to sell turnips. So the gaming landscape is just crazy weird right now. But I think a lot of folks are benefiting from it. And as far as that's concerned, Nintendo is probably just happy to keep collecting that Animal Crossing money for now.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That they can't. That kind of free advertising, they don't have to do anything. It's just that word of mouth is like, oh, okay, cool. We'll just keep counting our money.
Yeah, I mean, they have spoken about updates as well. They said that the virus may affect their output on updates and what they can promise. But, I mean, that's kind of the safest bet, though, to just sort of ride on Animal Crossing and keep updating it as much as you can. But it does sound like they also are experiencing some difficulties because they're, of course, working from home as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that people probably have difficulty understanding. I mean, I have difficulty understanding it, but software development environments are crazy complex, and the type of hardware you need to make video games is not easy to come by for an average person. So having those development teams working all remotely from their homes is probably very challenging just to get them the stuff they need to do their jobs.
Yeah, it's a hard time.
It really is. So we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. But for now, I tend to believe this rumor. I think it's pretty legit.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I believe the author. He has a good pass for this stuff. It's a shame, because I don't want it to be true, but I don't want to live in denial either, so
yeah,
it's just kind of the case.
Best to have lower expectations.
yeah, you can't be disappointed this way.
Yeah, if there's a direct somehow, great, but like you said, John, I happen to believe this guy. He has no reason to make this up, and he works for a credible publication as well. So I don't anticipate there being a June thing. I'd be happy if there was, but yeah, keep your expectations low.
Yep, but alright, well, unless you guys have anything else to say, I think that covers it for our non-Nintendo Direct discussion. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And of course, be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Nintendo and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.